The first thing I do when I have to look at a project and I have to investigate for due diligence or for an impact assessment is to look at the maps. Sometimes you will get the maps provided in the impact assessment or the documentation provided by the project, but I normally always use a free access satellite images like Google Earth or similar products, and I go directly to the area and I start to look to the small, close to the project area or the area of interest, and even broader, so I can have an idea who lives there, what do they do, what are the access area, which are the natural resources, who lives where. And that helps me to have an idea, a major sense, but also to be sharper on which are the questions and things to be looking at. Is some information that is missing or not? I'm going to show you an example. This is a map showing one part of the wind farm in South America. Here we can see the turbines, and these are the access road that need to be built in order to bring all the equipment and then to have the maintenance, etc. So all of that require acquisition, access to land, to acquire properties or part of the properties. So one of the things that we did was to identify which were the properties and who were the owners, and to indicate which of them the land acquisition has proceeded, was in order, and which of them they have conflict. And of course the ones that are in conflict are the ones we want to interview. But also we could with the same tool, we can take a closer look and to see what is actually inside the land. Are they being compensated for everything that is there? And so we can produce a kind of summary for the ones that seems to have some problems, or we need to make sure that there are not problems. For example, to say, here is going to be a house that needs to be destroyed. And is there anything else in that property that needs to be compensated? So we identify who's the landowner and we can have a conversation. And in that way we could identify, for example, that there were some places for husbandry that were important part of the livelihood of that family who were not included in the compensation package. And actually the family didn't know that they have the right of being compensated for that. So maps are interesting because you can have with high technology, but also very low technology. For example, we have done when you need to understand property, use of natural resources, you can, in the place where it's allowed, you can use drones just to film from outside and then show it to the community, and they will indicate, this is my house, this is my land, this is how we go, etc., etc. But also you can go completely down to earth with only a piece of paper, sand markers, sandpapers, or even in the sand, and build together what we call participatory community maps. And when you do a participatory map, you can start by small steps, like asking you, can you draw your community here? And then you start adding the questions. For example, where are the water resources? Where do you live? Where are your fields? How far are they? It is dangerous to cross the road. Who lives here? Who lives there? And in my experience, it's very interesting to do this exercise with men and women separately, because you will get a very different information. For example, this is a case in Western Africa where we needed to investigate the sources of water. And this one was the map produced by a group of women in the community. So they could tell you the orange ones are the wells where they were taking water. And they will tell you which one they were good, which one they were not using because the water tasted funny, and which one they were very fancy but they were not working. But the rest of the information about the infrastructure of the community was very poor. And you can see that here we have to use stickers because most of the women could not read and write and were very uncomfortable even drawing because they didn't have that much practice in holding the pens. But then we asked a group of men in the same community to draw the community and to identify the water wells. Funny enough, here the match is much more comprehensive, and they were not always showing what is the current infrastructure, for example, the church, the houses, but also where there were the plans for the community. Here we're going to build the house for the teachers. Here is the future health center, because they were involved in making the decision about the future investment of the community, which was an information that the woman didn't have. On the other hand, when we asked them, and what about the water wells? Well, they told, oh, we don't have any water well in the community, but we would like to have one. Funny enough, the building in which we're holding this meeting and where we're doing this map with the men, there was one of the water wells just in front of that building. They just never pay attention and never realized there was a water well because they are not the one fetching the water. Participatory maps can also be used, for example, for the identification of vulnerable groups during the interviews. One question that I always make when we're doing these maps is, where are the best place to live and why? If because of the light, access to water, safety, whatever. And also, what is the worst place to live and why? It is because of pollution, because lack of services. And then you ask, who live there? Who are the group of people who live in the worst place of the town or the city to live? And then you would more likely find some of the vulnerable groups in the community.